The first light hit my eyes, a gentle sunrise through the window. It was a new day, but something felt off. The golden rays that usually brought warmth and life seemed cold and distant. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the unease that had settled in my chest. It should have been the familiar symphony of a city waking, the distant hum of traffic, the chatter of early risers, the occasional bark of a dog, but today there was none of that. The city lay still as if holding its breath. Instead, silence. An unnerving, absolute silence. It was the kind of silence that presses against your ears, making you hyper-aware of your own heartbeat. I strained to hear something, anything, but there was nothing. Just an oppressive, all-encompassing quiet. I could feel it in my bones, a wrongness so profound that it stole my breath. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Was it a dream? A nightmare? But the cold floor beneath my feet and the sharpness of the morning light told me otherwise. This was real. The world felt hollow, empty, as if all the life had been sucked out, leaving behind a shell. I looked out at the cityscape, the long shadows stretching across the buildings, emphasizing the emptiness. It was a sight that should have been bustling with activity, but now it was eerily still. I stumbled out of bed, drawn to the window. My legs felt heavy, as if weighed down by the gravity of the situation. I needed to see it for myself, to confirm that this wasn't just a figment of my imagination. Below, the street was deserted. No cars, no hurried footsteps, no distant hum of traffic. It was as if the world had come to a standstill. The buildings cast long, eerie shadows, making the scene even more surreal. Nothing. It was as if someone had hit the mute button on the world. I was alone. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I had never felt so isolated, so completely cut off from everything and everyone. Panic welled up, a primal fear gripping my heart. My breaths came in short, ragged gasps as I tried to calm myself. What had happened? Where was everyone? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. I ran to the door, throwing it open to the dead silence of the apartment hallway. The usually bustling corridor was now a desolate stretch of emptiness. I half expected to see a neighbor, to hear the familiar sounds of life, but there was nothing. The building was usually bustling with life. Now, a tomb. The silence was deafening, each step I took echoing loudly in the stillness. It was as if the walls themselves were mourning the loss of life. My voice echoed in the stillness, a strangled cry. Hello? Is anyone there? Only the echo returned. The sound of my own voice, distorted and lonely, sent shivers down my spine. It was a confirmation of my worst fears. It was the confirmation I didn't want, a truth too terrible to process. The weight of it pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I was alone in a world that had suddenly gone silent. I was alone, utterly alone. The realization settled in, a cold, hard truth that I couldn't escape. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to find out what had happened, to understand the silence that had enveloped the world. The city, once a symphony of noise and motion, was now a graveyard of echoes. Buildings stood tall against the empty sky, monuments to a vanished civilization. I walked for hours, my footsteps the only sound in the eerie silence. Cars sat abandoned in the middle of the road, doors left open as if their owners had simply vanished. Shops were frozen in time, mannequins staring blankly from behind dusty windows. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay. I reached the city centre, my heart pounding in my chest. The plaza, usually teeming with life, was deserted. The fountain, once a meeting point, stood silent, its water stagnant. Everywhere I looked, there was no sign of life. No bird song, no rustling leaves, no distant sirens, just the oppressive silence and the growing certainty that I was the only one left. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, a relentless reminder of the world I once knew. The emptiness inside me was more than just physical. It was a void left by the collapse of society, the loss of everything familiar. A primal urge broke through the shock, a deep-seated instinct to survive. My mind raced with thoughts of where to find sustenance, how to navigate this new reality. The streets, once bustling with life, were now eerily silent, each step echoing the desolation around me. I needed food, water, shelter. Basic necessities that had become luxuries in this forsaken world. The grocery stores, once overflowing with goods, were now barren landscapes of scarcity. I rummaged through the remnants, hoping to find something, anything, that could sustain me, resources to survive in a world that had turned its back on me. The city, once a symbol of human achievement, was now a testament to nature's reclaiming power. Vines crept up buildings, and wildlife roamed freely where people once did. It was a stark reminder of how quickly things can change. I raided a nearby grocery store, its shelves still stocked with food. It was a rare find, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak existence. The canned goods and bottled water were treasures, each item a potential lifeline. Canned goods, bottled water, anything that wouldn't spoil quickly. These were the essentials, the building blocks of my survival strategy. I had to be meticulous, ensuring that every item I took would last as long as possible. It felt wrong, scavenging through the remnants of a lost world, but survival trumped guilt. The moral dilemmas of the past seemed trivial now. What mattered was staying alive, finding a way to endure the harsh reality that had been thrust upon me. Each item I collected was a small victory, a step towards ensuring my continued existence. But with each victory came a pang of guilt, a reminder of the world that once was. The memories of shared meals, of community and connection haunted me as I scavenged alone. Electricity was the next challenge. The grid, once a symbol of human ingenuity, was now a fragile network on the brink of collapse. I needed to find a way to generate power, to bring light into the encroaching darkness. The grid wouldn't last forever. The infrastructure was crumbling, and the power that once flowed effortlessly was now a scarce resource. I had to think creatively to find alternative sources of energy. I found a hardware store gathering tools, batteries, and a solar panel. These items were more than just supplies. They were symbols of hope, of resilience. The solar panel, in particular, represented a new beginning, a way to harness the power of the sun to light my way. It was a small comfort, a flicker of light in the encroaching darkness. The glow of the solar-powered light was a beacon, a reminder that even in the darkest times there is always a glimmer of hope. Each day was a scavenger hunt, a desperate search for resources in a city slowly being reclaimed by nature. The urban jungle was both a challenge and a refuge, offering both danger and the possibility of sustenance. With every passing moment, the reality of my situation sunk in deeper. I was alone. The silence was deafening, a constant reminder of the isolation that had become my new normal. But in that silence, I found a strange sense of peace, a clarity that came from knowing that my survival depended solely on me, and I had to learn to survive in this new, silent world. Each day was a lesson, each challenge an opportunity to adapt and grow. The search for sustenance was more than just a physical journey. It was a test of my resilience, my will to live, and my ability to find hope in the most unlikely places. The silence became a presence, a suffocating blanket that threatened to consume me. It was as if the very air around me had thickened, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The quiet was not just an absence of sound, but a tangible force that seemed to seep into my bones, chilling me from the inside out. I could feel it in every corner of the room, in every shadow that danced on the walls. It was a constant reminder of my isolation, a relentless companion that refused to leave. I craved the sound of another voice, the touch of another human being. The days stretched on endlessly, each one blending into the next, a monotonous parade of silence and solitude. I would give anything to hear a laugh, a whisper, even a cry, just something to break the oppressive stillness that surrounded me. I wandered through empty streets and abandoned towns, hoping to find some sign of life, some indication that I was not alone in this desolate world. Anything to break the deafening silence that echoed the emptiness inside me. I screamed into the void, my voice bouncing back at me, distorted and hollow. The vast, empty landscapes only served to amplify my sense of isolation, making me feel even smaller and more insignificant. The empty hallways and deserted buildings were like tombs, filled with the ghosts of a past that seemed so distant now. I longed for the days when these places were filled with life and laughter, when the world was vibrant and full of color. I searched for clues, some explanation for the disappearance. I pored over old newspapers, hoping to find some mention of what had happened, some hint that could lead me to an answer. I looked through binoculars, scanning the horizon for any sign of movement, any indication that I was not the last person left on Earth. I explored abandoned buildings, searching for anything that could provide a clue, a piece of the puzzle that would help me understand the mystery of this silent world. Newspapers, radio broadcasts, anything that could shed light on what happened. I adjusted an old radio, hoping to catch a signal, a voice, anything that would break the silence. I read weathered journals, trying to piece together the last moments of those who had come before me, but the answers remained elusive, hidden in the static and the silence. It was as if the world had simply decided to stop, leaving me behind to pick up the pieces. But the answers remained elusive, lost in the static and the silence. Nights were the hardest. The darkness seemed to amplify the loneliness, making the silence even more oppressive. I would sit by the window, staring out at the empty cityscape, the lights flickering like distant stars. I wandered through the empty town, the shadows stretching out before me like long, dark fingers. The silence was filled with whispers, the echoes of my own fears and doubts. The darkness amplified the loneliness, the silence filled with whispers of my own fear. I walked through the forest at night, the trees looming over me like silent sentinels. The shadows cast by the flickering candles seemed to dance and twist, creating shapes that played tricks on my mind. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a shiver down my spine. The fear was a constant companion, lurking just beneath the surface, ready to pounce at any moment. I clung to memories of the past, the warmth of human connection, the comfort of shared laughter. I looked at old photographs, the faces of loved ones smiling back at me, a stark contrast to the emptiness that surrounded me now. I sat by the campfire, the flames dancing and crackling, a small comfort in the vast darkness. I held a locket with a photo inside, a tangible reminder of the people I had lost, the connections that had once given my life meaning. But those memories were fading, replaced by the stark reality of my solitude. The deserted landscape stretched out before me, a constant reminder of the world that had once been. The empty playgrounds, once filled with the sounds of children playing, were now silent and still. I walked through empty houses, the echoes of past lives lingering in the air. The memories were like ghosts haunting me, reminding me of what I had lost. I began to talk to myself just to hear a human voice, even if it was my own. The sound of my own voice was a small comfort, a way to break the silence, to remind myself that I was still here, still alive. I sat alone in the park, the empty benches and silent trees, a stark contrast to the bustling life that had once filled this place. I walked along the empty beach, the waves crashing against the shore, a reminder of the relentless passage of time. It was a small comfort, a way to cling to my sanity in a world that had lost its mind. I sat by the fire, the warmth a small solace in the cold, empty night. I looked at my reflection in the lake, the face staring back at me, a stranger. I stood on the hilltop at sunrise, the first rays of light breaking through the darkness, a reminder that even in the bleakest of times, there is still hope. Nature, it seemed, was wasting no time in reclaiming its domain. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement, their green tendrils reaching for the sun. Vines crawled up buildings, slowly enveloping the concrete jungle in a tapestry of green. Animals, once confined to parks and zoos, roamed freely. Deer grazed in deserted parks, their eyes watching me with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Packs of dogs, now wild and wary, roamed the streets. The air, once thick with exhaust fumes, was now clear, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. The city was slowly transforming, shedding its concrete skin to reveal the wild heart that beat beneath. It was beautiful in a haunting, melancholic way. A stark reminder of nature's indifference to human suffering, its relentless march towards equilibrium, even in our absence.